few comments on this first practice. Let's start, actually. Let's do this one in stages. Consulting the inner oracle, listening to the intuition of the heart for guidance, becoming attentive to the voice of inner knowing and the path of life purpose. Now, this is a very different type of practice in many ways, because we have been doing practices up to now that are primarily based on things that are happening in the body and different ways of observing them, whether it's the 5 elements moving through us or the neurological current of the heart prana or the nature of the river of the lifespan or things like that. We're looking mostly at what is in the body and mind and how they are operating. But this is different. And I think that the best way that we can classify these 2 practices, consulting the inner oracle and the mirror of the mind, is that what we are doing now is we are using listening to the heartbeat to establish communication between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And this happens all the time. Our conscious mind is always being influenced by the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind is also influencing the subconscious mind all the time. Now, when it comes to intuition, what it means is that we are starting to listen to something, but we don't really know what it is we're listening to. And many times we don't even know what we're listening for. We don't know exactly what we need. We don't know how to proceed. There's an answer, there's some confusion. There's an answer that we need. There's some clarity we need. There's some confusion we need to clear up. And this is a fundamental aspect of being human. But I suspect that in traditional cultures, that there was far less confusion about what to do in general. Now, if you think about human history, the vast majority of people everywhere throughout history never went more than 20 miles from their village. And they were born there, they grew up there, they had their kids there, they grew old there, and they died there. And that was how it was generation after generation. And some people lived in these cultures for thousands of years. Okay, now, of course, there was upheaval and there were politics and there were wars and there were all these things that were coming and going. But the vast majority of humans, I think, were never confronted with the vast choices, opportunities, or lack of opportunities, or uncertainty that we are facing. And so we have a unique historical situation that is happening that is very disturbing to the mind. And it is disturbing because it creates a lot of unknowing, a lot of uncertainty about what do I do? How am I going to navigate through this? Very complex situations compared to, living in a village 1,000 years ago. Very, very complicated conditions and factors. And this causes a kind of suffering to the mind, a kind of stress and anxiety that keeps people awake. Mind is going in circular patterns. How do I solve this problem? How do I solve this problem over and over and over again? And when the mind is in this pattern, frequently it just wears out the body and it doesn't get answers. Now, we should also know that there are many ways to solve problems and many ways to get information, but at a certain point, we may just have to say, the mind isn't working at this level. and I need to go to a deeper source. So let's pause for a minute. Go ahead and put thumb on the opposite artery, close eyes, sit up, relax. Let's just listen to the heartbeat for a moment just to get oriented to this kind of practice, because this practice is not sequential like the others. This practice is very individual for you. What the teaching is here are some of the principles of what you can do with it. So listen to the heartbeat and remember some things that you have practiced before. Like remember giving the prana of attention to your own heart. Okay, now imagine the more you give attention to your own heart, the more it's going to communicate to you. And likewise, remember that inner journey, that inner pilgrimage we made to the temple of the heart where the innermost prana, the most subtle prana is beating, manifesting itself. Now, the more we pay attention to that, the more we can talk to it. And that's a level of our consciousness that correlates with a kind of higher knowing. So let's just listen for a moment, look inward for a moment, and be aware that we are connected to deeper levels of consciousness. We are connected to deeper levels of knowing. But they're frequently difficult to access. They frequently don't talk to us when we want them to. But let's be aware that in the heartbeat, that there is this source of knowing. Now, just doing that repeatedly will have some very important effects on our consciousness. It will help us to feel more secure, that we can find an answer, find a way through complicated circumstances. It's like feeling the great constant. The heart is always there. And if the heart is always pulsating for us, that means that our inner knowing is always there somewhere. But our mind is kind of like in exile, as it were. Our conscious mind is wandering in samsara in the outer world, and we need some spiritual insight, some guidance. And so we just have to keep coming back to the realization that, oh, we have it. It's there, but it doesn't operate according to the same laws, the same rules as our conscious mind wants it to. It operates in a different way. So let's just listen to the heartbeat for a moment and be aware that in the heartbeat, there is actually a doorway to very deep knowing. All right, so stretch, and now let's explore this a little bit more, kind of a philosophical way, then do it again. So I have really come to appreciate that the conditions of the world now are more and more putting people into a situation where they're saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This is happening from climate change. Anybody who loses their home, from floods, from fires, immediately, if you lose everything, a trauma like that, you're going to be confronted with very, very deep questions. What do I do? People are losing their homes because of finances. People are losing their jobs. This is like collective global insecurity of not knowing what to do. Okay, so I think we're entering into a phase now of tremendous confusion, tremendous uncertainty, and with that comes a lot of fear. And here's where we have to kind of separate things out a little bit and understand that there is this great pandemic of uncertainty and confusion and upheaval and so on. And that maybe a spiritual inquiry like this could have some benefits in giving us some answers. But I think it's actually more profound than that. Because many times the heart doesn't give us information that the mind wants. The heart gives us a different kind of response in a different kind of way. And so therefore, if we want specific practical information about things to do in the world, a lot of times that's not the way the heart talks to us. But the way the heart talks to us is even more mystical and even more important. And that is two things. First of all, if we keep going inward over and over and listening, or if we are doing any kind of spiritual practice in relation to crisis, we will be the kind of person who is doing spiritual practice in relation to crisis. And that's totally a different way of relating to crisis than people who are not doing spiritual practice in relation to crisis. And so therefore, just the fact that we are engaged in meditation as a way to navigate through crisis and uncertainty, if we are listening to the heartbeat, if we're watching our breath, if we are doing deep, repeated neurological relaxation, if we are engaged in prayer, if we're doing affirmations, if we're doing spiritual practices, that changes our relationship to crisis and uncertainty, and it empowers us to live with it and react to it differently. So this is one of the first levels of understanding. Listening to the deeper sources of intuition not only will give us information, but it will strengthen us and help us to relate to the outside uncertainty just by doing it. And here is the second and very mystical aspect of what happens. And that is, the more we do spiritual practices in relation to crisis, not only does it affect who we are, and we may emerge actually as, role models or leaders helping people to move through crisis also, but it influences the flow of time and space to create different conditions. And this is what I have found to be the most intriguing aspect of listening to our own intuition, is that many times we don't need answers. We need things to change. And instead of trying to figure things out and get answers, many times the deeper levels of intuition won't tell us. It won't give us any information. But synchronicity will happen. And this is how the subconscious mind works. The subconscious mind manifests in the flow of time and space. And therefore, what we are really looking for, if we are in crisis, is we don't want to lose sleep over it night after night. How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? We want to be able to just say, look, God, look, subconscious mind, look, medicine Buddha, Buddha nature, self, whatever it is. Heart prana, we want to just trust in that. We want to feel that it is working for us. And of course, the greatest suffering is when we do not see that it is working. We do not see change coming. We do not see anything unfolding. There is no synchronicity. And really, we are like abandoned in samsara. So what that means is many times, the only thing that we can do is just do spiritual practice and just keep doing spiritual practice. And that is the best way to navigate through crisis. And if we go deeply enough, we may be able to start receiving intuitive information about, okay, this is really what I need to do now. And I will share some methods for how to get that information.